What if I told you, you didn't choose to watch this video, that this decision was already happening before you even noticed it? Sounds strange, right? But one of the greatest spiritual teachers, Paramahansa Yogananda, once said something unsettling. Most of your life isn't as free as you think, because we grow up believing one thing, that we're in control, that we choose what we do, what we think, what we feel. But let me ask you something simple. Do you choose your next thought? Or does it just appear? And if you don't even choose what you think, how free are you, really? Maybe the truth is more uncomfortable than it seems. You are free. And at the same time, you never were. He lives his life believing something that almost everyone believes, that he is in control, that every decision he makes comes from him, from his own will, from his own choice. But if that's true, why does he keep repeating the same patterns? Why does he react the same way, again and again, even when he knows it won't end well? He tells himself he'll change. He promises he'll do better next time. But when the moment comes, he does the same thing, almost like something inside him is already deciding, and he's just following along. He wakes up, checks his phone, thinks certain thoughts, feels certain emotions, and calls it his life. But how much of that was actually chosen? And how much of it just happened? Because if he stops for a second and really looks, he'll notice something strange. His thoughts don't ask for permission. They appear, out of nowhere, one after another, and his emotions follow right behind, automatically. So now there's a problem, a real one. If his thoughts come on their own, and his emotions react on their own, then where exactly is his control? Where is this free will he believes so much in? This is where things start to get uncomfortable, because it forces him to face a possibility he's been avoiding his whole life. Maybe he is not as free as he thinks. Maybe a big part of his life is already being shaped before he even gets the chance to choose. And this isn't just a random idea. Teachings from Paramahansa Yogananda suggest something even deeper, that the way a person thinks, feels, and reacts is not created in the moment. It's carried from past experiences, from past conditioning, from patterns built over time, which means what he calls choice might not be starting from zero. It might be coming from something already in motion, something already shaping the direction before he even becomes aware of it. And if that's true, then a deeper question begins to emerge. Is he really choosing his life, or is he simply becoming aware of decisions that were already unfolding? Before we move on to the next part, I want to get to know you better. You there, watching from the other side of the screen. Yes, you. Drop a comment with your name and the city you're watching from. And tell me, what problem are you facing right now? Write this exact phrase in the comments. Facing right now. Or, be honest, be real. This is your space. At first, he resists this idea. It doesn't feel right, because deep down, he wants to believe he's in control. He wants to believe that his life is the result of his own choices, not something automatic, not something programmed. But the more he pays attention, the harder it becomes to ignore what's actually happening. He starts noticing the small things, the way he reacts without thinking, the way certain situations trigger the same emotions, over and over again. Someone says something he doesn't like, and before he even realizes it, he feels irritation, sometimes anger, sometimes insecurity, and it happens fast, too fast, faster than any decision he thinks he's making. It's almost instant, like a reflex, like something inside him already knows how to respond, before he has the chance to choose. And it's not just emotions, it's habits, daily routines. The same behaviors repeating themselves in different situations. He says he wants to change. He says he wants a different life. But when the moment comes, he goes back to what's familiar, what's comfortable, what's already known, even when it doesn't serve him, even when it hurts him. And that's when something starts to become clear. This isn't just about choice. This is about conditioning. Because everything he does, the way he thinks, the way he feels, the way he reacts, has been shaped over time. By experiences, by memories, by everything he has lived through. And most of it, he didn't choose. He didn't choose the environment he grew up in. He didn't choose the beliefs he was taught as a child. He didn't choose the emotional patterns he developed to protect himself. But all of that is now part of how he functions, part of how he sees the world, part of how he responds to life. So when he says, "I chose this," did he really? Or was that choice already influenced by everything that came before? Teachings from Paramahansa Yogananda point to something very direct, that a person's present state is deeply influenced by past actions, past thoughts, and past tendencies, not just from yesterday, but from everything accumulated over time. Which means, what feels like a fresh decision might actually be the continuation of a pattern that has been repeating itself, quietly, consistently, in the background. And the problem is, he usually doesn't see it, because it feels natural. It feels like him, his personality, his preferences, his way of being. But what if that's not who he truly is? What if that's just the result of everything that has shaped him so far? Because if his reactions are conditioned, if his thoughts arise on their own, if his habits run automatically, then something starts to break. The idea that he is fully in control. The idea that he is completely free. And this is where the illusion becomes visible, not all at once, but slowly, uncomfortably, like realizing that what he thought was a conscious life might actually be a series of automatic responses, playing out again and again. And if that's true, then the question becomes unavoidable. If so much of his life is already influenced, already shaped, already moving in a certain direction, then where exactly does his freedom begin? And more importantly, does it even exist the way he always believed it did? At some point, I can't ignore it anymore. There's something uncomfortable about all of this, because the more I observe myself, the more I start to see patterns I didn't notice before, reactions that feel automatic, thoughts that show up out of nowhere, emotions that take over, before I even have time to think. And it makes me question something I always took for granted. If all of this is happening so fast, so automatically, then where exactly am I in all of this? Because I used to believe that I was the one in control, that I was the one choosing. But now, I'm not so sure. When I look closer, I realize something strange. Most of what I call my decisions don't actually start in the moment. They feel like they do, but they don't. They come from somewhere deeper, from tendencies I didn't consciously create, from patterns that were already there, before I even became aware of them. And that's when things start to connect. Because when I think about my past, it becomes clear that I didn't start from zero. Everything I went through, every experience, every emotion, every situation, left something behind, a trace, a mark, a way of seeing, a way of reacting. And over time, all of that started shaping how I respond to life, without me even noticing, without me choosing it. Teachings from Paramahansa Yogananda explain this in a way that feels almost unsettling, that what I am experiencing now is not separate from what came before, that my present state is deeply connected to past actions, past thoughts, and past patterns, which means what I feel right now, what I think right now, and even what I'm about to do might already be influenced by something that's been building for a long time. And if that's true, then my sense of control starts to weaken, because it's no longer just about what I want in this moment. It's about everything that has shaped what I want, everything that has shaped how I see things, everything that has shaped how I react. So when I say, "This is my choice," I have to ask myself, where is that choice really coming from? Is it coming from something truly free? Or is it coming from a pattern that's just continuing itself? Because the more I pay attention, the more it feels like I'm not starting anything new. I'm continuing something that was already in motion. And that's where the idea of destiny starts to feel less abstract, less philosophical, and more real. Not as something mystical, but as something practical, something visible in the way I live my life, in the way I repeat behaviors, in the way I fall into the same emotional loops, in the way I struggle to change, even when I want to. It's like I'm moving inside a structure that I didn't consciously build, but I'm still inside it, still acting within it, still responding based on it. And the hardest part to accept is this. It feels like me. It feels natural. It feels like this is who I am. But what if that's not true? What if that's just everything I've learned to be? Everything I've been shaped into? Because if that's the case, then maybe my life hasn't been as free as I thought. Maybe I've been living inside patterns, thinking they were choices. And if that's true, then something inside me starts to question everything.
For most of your life, you believed you were your thoughts. You believed the mind had to be fixed, silenced, controlled. But no one ever told you this. The mind was never the problem. The real trap is believing you are it. There is something in you that watches fear, that watches pain, that watches every thought arise and disappear. That observer has never suffered. It was never born, and it will never die. When this is seen, effort disappears. The spiritual search ends, because the one who was searching was never real. This is not a teaching to believe in. It is a direct experience, simple and deeply liberating. The book, The Awakening of the Observer, does not teach techniques. It points to the exact place where the ego dissolves. Each page is a mirror, and what is seen there cannot be unseen. If something in you recognizes these words, the call has already begun. Click the link in the comments and get your copy of The Awakening of the Observer now.
Not just my decisions, but my sense of identity, my sense of control, my sense of freedom. Because now, a deeper question begins to take form. If so much of what I do comes from what has already been built inside me, then am I really choosing my life? Or am I just playing out something that was already unfolding long before I became aware of it? And now, it comes back to you, because this is no longer just about ideas. It's about how you live your life. Right now, you've seen the patterns. You've noticed the reactions. You've felt how fast everything happens inside you. So let me ask you directly, where exactly is your freedom? If your thoughts appear on their own, if your emotions rise without asking, if your habits pull you back into the same behaviors, then what part of you is actually choosing? This is where the paradox begins. Because at the same time, you still feel like you're making decisions. You still feel like you can choose. You can decide what to say. You can decide what to do. You can decide how to act. So which one is true? Are you in control? Or are you being controlled? Are you free? Or are you just following a path that was already shaped? Teachings from Paramahansa Yogananda point directly to this tension, that life is not just one or the other, it's both. There are forces shaping you, influencing you, pushing you in certain directions. But at the same time, there is something in you that can respond, something that is not completely trapped. And this is where most people get confused, because they try to choose from the surface, from the same patterns, from the same reactions. And then they say, I'm choosing. But are you really choosing? Or are you just continuing what's already there? Because real choice doesn't feel automatic. It doesn't feel reactive. It doesn't feel like something that just happens. It requires awareness. And that changes everything. Because now the question is no longer, do you have free will or not? The real question becomes, from where are you choosing? From habit, from emotion, from conditioning, or from something deeper, something more conscious? Because maybe you are not completely free, but you are not completely trapped either. You are somewhere in between. And that space is where everything starts to shift. At this point, something begins to change. Not outside, but inside. Because after seeing all of this, he can no longer pretend he didn't notice. The patterns are clear. The reactions are clear. The automatic nature of his life is clear. But something else starts to appear too. Something subtle, almost invisible at first. A small gap, a space between what he feels and what he does. Before, everything was immediate. Something happened, and he reacted. No pause, no awareness, just action. But now, he starts to notice that this isn't always the case. There are moments, very small moments, where he becomes aware of what's happening inside him. He feels the emotion rising. He sees the thought forming. And for a brief second, he is not completely inside it. He is observing it. And in that observation, something new becomes possible. Because for the first time, he is not just reacting. He is seeing. And that changes the dynamic completely. Teachings from Paramahansa Yogananda point directly to this shift. That true freedom is not about controlling everything that happens. It's not about stopping thoughts. It's not about eliminating emotions. It's about becoming aware. Because awareness creates distance. And in that distance, there is choice. Real choice. Not the automatic kind. Not the conditioned response. But something conscious. Something intentional. So now, when something triggers him, the process is no longer the same. The emotion still comes. The thought still appears. The impulse is still there. But there is a moment, a small but powerful moment, where he can either follow it or not. And that changes everything. Because now, his life is no longer just a continuation of the past. It's no longer just patterns repeating themselves endlessly. There is interruption, there is presence, there is a different kind of action. Not perfect, not constant, but real. And this is where the idea of freedom starts to make sense again. Not as something absolute, not as something total, but as something that exists in moments. Moments of awareness. Moments where he is no longer lost in what is happening, but present with it. And the more those moments grow, the more his life begins to shift. Slowly, naturally, without force, because he is no longer trying to control everything. He is learning to see, and in seeing, he is no longer completely trapped inside the patterns that once defined him. He is still influenced, still shaped, still carrying everything that came before. But now, he is not only that. There is something else, something deeper, something that can observe and choose. And that is where his freedom begins. And now, everything comes back to you. Because this is no longer just about understanding something. It's about what you're going to do with it. You've seen the patterns. You've noticed how thoughts appear, how emotions rise, how reactions happen, almost on their own. And at the same time, you've seen that there is a space, a small window, where something different can happen. So now the question is simple. What are you going to do with that space? Because this is where most people go back to sleep. They understand the idea. They agree with it. They even feel it for a moment. And then they return to the same automatic life, the same reactions, the same habits, the same unconscious patterns. And slowly, they forget. They forget that there was ever a chance to see things differently. Teachings from Paramahansa Yogananda make this very clear, that life is a mix of influence and choice. You are shaped by what came before, by your past, by your conditioning, by everything that has formed who you are today. But you are not completely trapped by it, because awareness gives you a way out, not all at once, not instantly, but moment by moment, choice by choice. In every situation, there is a possibility to react the same way, or to respond differently, a possibility to follow the pattern, or to break it. And that's where your real power is, not in controlling everything, not in forcing life to go your way, but in how you meet what happens. Because maybe you don't choose the thoughts that appear. Maybe you don't choose the emotions that rise. Maybe you don't choose the situations that come into your life, but you can choose what you do next. And that changes everything. Because your life is not just what happens to you, it's how you respond to it. And that response is where your freedom lives. So in the end, you are free, but not in the way you thought. You are not free to control everything. You are not free from influence. You are not free from your past, but you are free in a deeper way. You are free in the space between impulse and action. You are free in the moment you become aware. You are free in the decision to not follow what is automatic. And that freedom, even if it's small at first, has the power to change everything. Because the more you use it, the more it grows. The more you ignore it, the more it disappears. So now, the question is no longer philosophical, it's personal. Right here, right now. In your next reaction, in your next decision, in your next moment of awareness, will you follow the same path? Or will you choose differently? Before you go, if this video truly touched your heart or helped you see something differently, please subscribe and share it with your friends and family. Someone you love might need this message right now. But don't leave just yet. The next video on your screen is the perfect continuation of this journey. So click it and keep going deeper. If you feel ready to truly understand this at a deeper level, I invite you to get the book The Awakening of the Observer. It goes far beyond this video, with powerful daily practices, and the link is in the pinned comments. And if this message meant something to you, consider supporting the channel through Buy Me a Coffee. The link is also in the pinned comments. Your support helps us keep creating these videos. Stay with the journey. Watch the next video now.